Morning, everybody. Time for coffee and questions. This is kind of like an add-on to a video that I did about welding brackets. So I guess I'll call this part 2 because I got a request from somebody that was telling me that they were thinking about buying some brackets online to help them secure and hold two pieces of steel so that they could weld them. And I said, well, wait a minute. Before you run out and spend money on something like that, understand that most of the time, if you think about it, you can make something that's very functional and you can save money and you can make it out of scrap steel. So I decided to go ahead and do like an add-on video. Like I said, we'll call it part 2 of more welding brackets. I'm going to show you some other ones I've made very fast. They're very easy to do out of scrap steel. You can put them to the side, use them when you need them, but I wouldn't go out and just start buying brackets because it's really unnecessary. And you can use the cost savings, buy yourself some more tools that you really could use. Let's take a look. Let me throw up some pictures. One moment. Okay, I'm going to do the questions and answers as we go along. I had somebody tell me, hey, look, like I said, I'm going to go out and buy it, blah, blah, blah. And so, no, don't buy it. Let me explain something to you. In the comment, they said, well, it's not a big deal. You just take a chop saw or whatever. You cut your 45s, you line them up, you tack weld. Then you turn around and do the same thing to complete like this square. And you go ahead and you weld it up and, you don't really need anything. Well, I'm going to tell you from the School of Hard Knocks, yeah, you do. I've tried to do it long ago. The way you're suggesting, it will not come out truly square. It's not going to, okay? You're going to screw it up, and if you measure like on a diagonal, the measurements are going to be off. I would encourage you use clamps. Now, let's talk about it for a minute. Here's a clamp that's really easy to make. You can make it out of scrap. So let's take a look at this. This is the best photo I could find, but let me explain to you the way I made mine, which is a little bit different than what you see in the picture. The part that says or has the 6 on there, use a piece of angle iron, a good, decently thick angle iron. Don't use flat. Okay, then you use more angle iron, same, bed frame rails, whatever you come across, and go ahead and set them up flat like this guy did here with these clamps. Put a piece of steel in there, on the 45, and make sure that you have these things like absolute the way that you want them so that when you drop two pieces of steel, or whether you're butting them up to weld them, go ahead and drop them in there. Take a square, make sure that it is perfectly square. And when you have that, then turn around and put some tack welds on the back. Remove the clamps, set the steel in there one more time, just to double check. Now, if you need to, you can tap it with a hammer because you've only tack welded it. Make sure these things are perfect when you set those two pieces of steel, that you're getting that nice 90-degree angle. When you're sure that you have that on the back side of where these clamps are, where that 6 is, go ahead and create a welding bead across there and weld them in nice and securely. Okay, at that point, remove the clamps. Now, what I do where that 6 is, I have one big C clamp. I put this on my table, and I go ahead and I secure it down real tight. Now, nothing's in the way of these other two pieces of angle iron, and you can set your metal in there. It'll line up perfectly. Tack weld, always tack weld first. Tack weld them, pull it off of there. Check it again with a square. It should be absolute and spot on. If it is, you've made yourself a wonderful little welding jig. It doesn't take up any room. I have them on my welding cart like in a box. I just throw them in there when I'm done. And then when I go to do another project or something, I root around and I figure out if any of these clamps are what I need, and I pull one out and I use it. It's made out of scrap. It's easy to make. Don't go out and buy this stuff, okay? Save your money. Go buy some nice tools with it. All right, let's throw up another picture. Let's talk about it. That's my thoughts on this one. It's the picture I pulled off, but I'm just using it, as a discussion example. This is not exactly the way that I made mine. Like I said, where the 6 is. Nice piece of angle iron there. Use angle iron here on the right and the left. Make sure everything's all square. Weld it real good. Boom, you got a nice clamp. All right, hold on, let's move on. Okay, here's another clamp, and it relates to a similar question. Instead of buying the clamps, you made this one. Let's take a look at this, and let's see what he did. You can use another piece of angle, right? This stuff is like cheap steel. Use a piece, and then cut off 2 little ones. Put them on each end, like he did here in the channel. And you don't need to over weld. I mean, you can, well, you can if you want to practice your welding, but otherwise you could just make small welds, weld these on there. And what you can do is you can go out to Harbor Freight, buy yourself a couple of cheap C clamps, and you cut them. And then you can weld them on to the back side if you want, or thereabouts. You can weld these on to where it looks like what's in the picture here. So you say, well, gee, why would I do that? Well, now I have 2 pieces of steel, whether it's round or whether it's square, that I want to butt weld. You want to stick them up together, you want to butt weld them. and you want them to turn out perfect. So the one's not like going at an angle or whatever and they're all screwed up. And again, I've done this before in the past. I've had trouble. Yeah, you can do it, but you got to sit there and tweak and play around. This creates like a bed for it to sit in, and then you tighten these clamps. And it keeps it real tight. It keeps it together. It keeps it in perfect alignment. And then you can, from the back side, put a little weld, a little tack weld, come to the front, come to the top. Don't try to over weld and just weld the whole thing. Just tack weld it all the way around. Loosen these clamps, turn it, do it again, and then you've created your spot welds all the way around it. When you take it out, look at it. This thing will be perfectly straight. Keeps everything in perfect alignment, and it's fast, it's easy, it's made out of scrap. I would encourage you to take a look at doing this too if it works for you. Let's throw up another picture. Let's discuss it. These C-clamps are cheap out at Harbor Freight. They're nothing high end, and who cares? You're not going to over tighten. You're just using them to secure steel that you can weld things in perfect alignment. That's what they're good for. Okay, another picture. Here we go. Okay, the next question is how do I make round circles without getting a roller, like a metal roller? And that's expensive because it's a big piece of equipment. Here's one way above me in a picture where if you have some kind of a metal or a steel cylinder laying around, don't just throw it out. You could actually cut a section out. Now this guy's got a whole pot that he's using for something else, and he's bending the metal around it with these clamps. And as you bend it, you can heat it if you want to create the bend much easier. This is a way to get a nice bend all the way around to create a circle. You just have to find something that's scrap, that's round like an old tank or something like that, but it's very doable. So this is another suggestion on how you can do it without having one of those very expensive big machine rollers. It could be an old oxygen cylinder, and you just cut some sections off of it and you throw them down in your bracket pile or whatever, and you use them in the future. You bring them out, and you can take, like he did here, some flat cold rolled steel and start bending it around until you create that circle. Once you've created the circle, you could actually just tack weld it, take it off, or cut it with your 4.5-inch angle grinder as you're coming from, the beginning to the end there. And you're trying to butt these up together. You can cut it with an angle iron. You can cut it with an angle grinder, and you can finish this so that the two edges line up. You can tack weld it, take it off of here, finish welding it, dress it up with your flap wheels, and you have this nice, perfectly round circle. But you have to find something like an old tank or something metal or something similar and bend it around. You can try to do it on wood. I've done it in the past. If you have a piece of scrap wood laying around, you can do it with wood too. You just have to be careful, because if you're heating it up and bending it, of course, you're going to end up burning the wood. But you can complete your project by using wood. It's not impossible. I had some scrap logs where the log itself was almost perfectly round. I took it to the bandsaw. I made it real round, where it was nice and round the way that I wanted it. Then I took the steel and I bent it around, that section of that log, tack welded it up, and it came out almost perfectly round. So, there are variations in how to create this round circle. And one of the comments was, it's really hard to make round circles. Well, it's not if you know what to use. Okay, that's your quick tip of the day. You got any comments or questions, leave them below. Click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. You folks have a good day. Bye-bye.